Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Seriously Creative. So today's video in Resin Basics is on how to avoid getting bubbles in your resin. So the first thing to take into consideration is what kind of resin you're using. So this one that I've got is called Barnes Epoxy Cast. It's a 2-to-1 mix, but what's really important is that it's quite runny and thin so that when I pour it, it's not as likely to get bubbles. So a thicker resin will have more bubbles in it. So if you can get a resin that's thin, it's going to be easier for you to avoid the bubbles. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure out my resin, and I'm making these 2 trays, and I know that for these 2 I need 80 mils of the part 1 and 40 mils of part 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure that into my cups. So now that I've got both parts in the cup, I'm going to start mixing very slowly, and the slower you mix, the less chance there is of bubbles. And also it's good to use a thicker spatula if you can instead of a thin one, just because it won't aerate the resin as much. I usually try and mix for about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. Until I can see that the resin's clear, because at the moment I can see that it's quite streaky. It's still all the 2 parts getting mixed together, so you just got to mix it slowly and thoroughly, and try and just do it in one direction as well. Okay, so after I've stirred it and I think it's been thoroughly mixed, I'm just going to let it sit for a couple of minutes, and that's going to let all these little micro bubbles rise to the surface. So then what I'm going to do is grab my heat gun. So I just got this off eBay, it's a crafting heat gun, and I'm just going to turn it on and try and pop some of the bubbles that have come up to the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and pour into my molds here, and what you want to do is once again just pour slowly, and that's going to reduce any bubbles that get stuck. So just start to pour really slowly. And then just let them sit for a few minutes. If you can see any bubbles stuck in the corners, just use a toothpick to get them to come up to the surface. And I just want to mention, I obviously really overestimated how much resin I needed. I think I wrote down the wrong formula before because I've got heaps left over. So I don't know what happened there, but anyway, I'll find something else for that. So there's a few little bubbles that have come up to the surface from me doing this and getting them out of the corners. So once you've done that, you can take the heat gun again and just really carefully go over it. You don't want to be too rough with it, because otherwise the resin will spill over the edges, so try and keep it like face down and not too close. So just let your resin sit, and you can keep checking on it every 10 minutes or so until it starts to really cure. Mine takes about half an hour before it really sets, so I come and check it every 10 minutes just to pop any bubbles that have come back up. And I used to do this part with a lighter, like an actual barbecue lighter, but I stopped doing that because it heats up the silicone molds too much and it actually ruins them. So it's better if you can get a hold of one of these, and that will help you pop the bubbles and not ruin your molds. So I also just wanted to add quickly, if you don't have a heat gun, you can just use a straw, like I've just got a metal straw here, and you can just use it to blow the bubbles away. So I'll just show you on this little crystal mold that I've got. You can just blow on it and it will get rid of the bubbles as well. So it's not as good as using a heat gun because the extra heat will help to pop the bubbles, but if you don't have one, you can use a straw, and that'll definitely help as well. So I've just moved them over onto my work desk to let them cure, and as you can see they're looking pretty good. I can't really see any bubbles at the moment, but I'm just going to keep an eye on them for the next half an hour until it really starts to set, and if I see any little bubbles come up I'll just go over it with the heat gun and pop them. And yeah, I'll show you what it looks like when they're all done. Okay, so this tray is the finished product of the tray that I was showing you before, but I realised because I put kind of like a pearlescent background on it, you can't really see if it's perfectly clear or not, but I will hold it up to the window in a minute so you can have a look. But this one is obviously clear all the way through, so I thought it would be a better example of how to use the technique and get a good result. So you can kind of see how clear this one is, but I'll grab the moth one, it will be easier to tell. So you can see this one's pretty much come out bubble free. It's a bit easier to see because it's completely clear. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!